Are we live, Devin?
Little bit of a lag. It shows a gray screen. And we are live.
Thank you. With that, we will call to order the March 8th, 2021 meeting of the Tecumseh Board of Education. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance read by Ms. Suzanne Moore. Not bad.
I pledge of allegiance
to the flag
of the
of the
United
United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, our first item tonight is good news. The Tecumseh High School 100 years of accreditation. I believe I saw Mr. Niles is still with us somewhere. There he is.
Yes, good evening. Good evening. As some of you may or may not know, we are in our process of doing our 5-year renewal of our national accreditation through Cognia, also known as Advanced Ed, and what's been known for years and years is North Central. During my conversations this last fall, early winter, we learned that Tecumseh High School had achieved one of what very few schools actually accomplished, and that is last April of 2020, we were recognized as one of the few schools that had achieved 100 continuous years of North Central accreditation. We were given a very nice letter from the president and CEO of Cognia. We were also given a very huge plaque to hang in our great hall and a very nice banner that recognizes, and we'll just want to give you a nice shot of what it looks like. Tecumseh High School. So as we go through that this year and get our accreditation up, we'll actually have 101 this April, and we'll get another 5 years here because I'm not going to be the principal that drops 100 years, guaranteed. So we will get that done and taken care of. But this is something that very few schools in the nation, and Cognia is actually worldwide, that achieve 100 straight years of accreditation. So THS has something to be very proud of. So just wanted to share, that's great news, not just good news.
Thank you, Dennis.
Thanks, Dennis.
That'll take us to our public comment on agenda items. We had no one for a public comment on agenda items. Brings us to our revisions or approval of agenda. Do we have any revisions for the agenda, or could I get an approval for the agenda as written?
I need to make a revision. I would like to add, we had a late entry for the middle school strength and conditioning program. So I would like to add an additional $1,000 from Martin Home Center into that discussion item, please.
I second.
All right. Might you revise? Okay, acceptance of gift. I see it right there. Okay. Roll call vote for the agenda with the revision. Becky?
Aye.
Suzanne?
Aye.
Tim?
Aye.
Greg?
Aye.
And Tony?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Agenda is approved as revised. First scheduled report tonight is Board Policy Committee meeting from February 23rd, 2021. Is this you, Suzanne?
Yes, it is. And basically, we did a policy review of the 8,000 series and the 9,000 series, which basically finished up our policy review. There were basically no recommended changes to the 8,000 series, and there were only a couple changes to the 9,000. Policy 9,700. There was a recommendation to change B4 and C5 to include basically B4 is about operations and the contests, or I'm sorry, distribution, posting, and literature. And basically we set the time and the manner of the distributions that established communication. We wanted to add that be added. And what other one was? There was another one that we added as well to that. N and Q also got added to policy 9,700 under the general advertising guidelines as part of the policy. And this basically, it's up for discussion, so we'll be talking about it again in a few minutes.
All right, thank you, Suzanne. We have a scheduled report from the Board Curriculum Committee meeting, which is John Benzing, who is not here tonight. Rick, can you fill in for that, please?
Yeah, the curriculum committee heard some things that you'll hear about later. Mr. Niles has a program that he would like to add next year for all freshmen, and you'll get details under the discussion item. Also, he'll talk about the Michigan Merit Curriculum Diploma that was presented to the committee. So you'll hear about that in discussion. And then we talked about the curriculum review process this year involving K-12 English Language Arts and 6-12 math to go along with the K-5 math to go along with the 6-12 program that's now in place. And Jacob Anastasov will have more information on that in discussion items.
Thank you, Rick. And lastly, we have the Board Finance Committee meeting scheduled report from Ms. Brooks.
So we discussed, Kelly presented for us the governor's proposed budget. It was quite generous, but was not final. And then there was a supplemental proposed budget that also at the time was not final. Now, Kelly, I saw something come through late today. Was there some movement on that?
So I did not see what came out late today, but the last I did check, 3 of the 4 proposals has passed the Senate.
Okay.
There was one modification that sent the 4th proposal back to the House, obviously for their approval as well. But 3 of those 4 items that I know are waiting in the governor's desk to see what she will do.
Okay, so there's lots of hurry up and wait, and that's where we're at with that right now. But it looks like it's going to be beneficial to us. We also had the ESSER2 planning process and potential items. So this was COVID relief funds, like what we had from earlier in the year that we had from September to December, the end of December to spend. So these were COVID relief funds that were given to us by the federal government. These aren't local tax funds. These are federal government funds that were given as COVID relief. And we had asked staff and administration to put together a wish list of what they would like to see done with those funds. Now, the upside this time around is they gave us a little longer to use them. So we can take our time and we can look at things and see what is going to be appropriate and necessary to utilize these funds that were given to us. Also, we talked about, so we've had some discussion on the board about moving, about getting our board packets sooner. And so part of that discussion was that makes it very hard for Kelly at the first meeting of the month when she usually does finances to have everything ready to us. So we agreed that we would move the financing report to the end of the month. It really makes no difference for us, the way it's structured as to when we get it, but it will help her get the information to Terry sooner to get our board packets out earlier. So that was our meeting. Back to you.
Thank you, Becky. That'll bring us to our discussion items. First thing is the performance bond presentation. The gentlemen are here from ESG, and I will let them take it away.
Okay. I don't know if Craig is able to share his screen and show you guys the presentation, but I'll go ahead and talk through it a little bit while he's doing that. Okay, so anyway, some of you guys have met us before at the meeting a couple weeks ago. ESG is, oh, there we go. So basically, first of all, I'm Bruce Benoit. I'm the account executive for Michigan. ESG is located down in Evansville, Indiana, but we've scattered throughout the Midwest and down in the South. We've got a little bit of reach out in the West as well. I am joined. Hey, you're going a little fast there, Craig. I am joined by Craig Griffin, who is our lead engineer. He's in Ohio. And then I also have with me Brent Van Hoos, who is our Midwest sales manager. And we'll all be doing just a few minutes of talking for you today. But anyway, so we were established back in 1994. So we're not a new company, very experienced in performance contracting. And, we're big enough company. We've got well over 400 employees. But we've also done a lot of work in performance contracting. We have done well over $3 billion in projects in savings, and then that's helping customers save money, pay for upgrades with a budget neutral approach. We have, we've also facilitated over $1 billion in financing. Now, we don't finance ourselves, but we've helped. We have a finance department that will actually walk you through and help you get all of the financing done. And I know financing is a tricky kind of touchy thing when it comes to numbers, but the basic premise of this project is that it's budget neutral and that the savings pays for the upgrades, and we'll show you all that. We've also done over $1 billion in multi-phase projects. Some of those projects, this project might fall into that, but multi-phase would be something where you want to get done with a number of things now. We can write in the contract that after that we can do another phase, and we've done multiple phases in a lot of these school districts. And then the one last thing that I'd like to point out here real quick is that we're an independent, equipment independent company. So for those of you that we haven't talked to before, we don't manufacture a product. So the benefit there to you is that we are going to, whether it's replacement or upgrades or whatever it is, we will make sure that the product is the best fit for the district, not because we sell or manufacture a product, okay? But we're also vendor neutral. So the benefit there is that if you guys have contractors that you use, that you like, that know the facilities, we can work with them. We also have our partners that we can bring in too, but we have a lot of options there, okay? Any questions on who we are at all? I mean, there's so much more, but we just want to keep this to a minimum tonight. Okay, all right. And again, I know you guys had, Rick had mentioned you guys had a kind of a work session the last time on what energy savings performance contracting is. And I'm not going to waste too much time on this because I want to make sure, but I do want to make sure that you understand. It is a simple concept. Basically, the money saved is what pays for the project. So it is a budget neutral program. Michigan has legislation put in place specifically for this. So by all means, take advantage of doing that. The guarantees are simple. If we tell you we're guaranteeing we're going to save you X amount of dollars per year, we have to save you that amount of money. Now, if we come up short, ESG will pay the difference. If if there's money above and beyond that, that's all yours. That has nothing to do with us. And that's the nice thing, is that that's generally what our goal is. Another one of the guarantees is that, and many of you may have had this happen in some of the projects, is that there is generally about a 10 to 20% increase due to change orders. Well, we guarantee against change orders. So once we get past, let's say, this part, and we go to an RFP and we get kind of further down the road, we start looking at things in much more detail. And then we will come down with an exact number down to the penny, and that's what the project is. So we have to guarantee against change orders as well. I mean, that's about it for that. Is there any questions? Does anybody not understand or any unclarity on what a performance contract is? Please ask away if you can. Nobody? Okay. All right. So what I want to do is I'm going to get Craig Griffin here real quick. He's just going to kind of do a bird's eye view of what we have done. Now, again, I've been working with Tom Hawkins and Rick for a little while, but basically a little over a year. It does take a long time to put these things together because there's a lot of evaluation, whether it's physically walking the buildings, which we did, going through all of the utility bills and any type of data that we can get in order to come up with some of the numbers that we come up with. I think you'll like what you see. It's a really, really good opportunity here for you guys, a lot of benefits for the school. So I'm going to let Craig go ahead and go over some of the scope, or at least the ideas of what we can do.
Bruce. So we took a day and we walked through the 6 buildings that make up the school district. And what I'm going to do is just briefly go over some of the things we saw during our walkthroughs. These are potential projects that you could see if you do a performance contract. Regarding lighting, you've already done a lot of LED retrofits. There are some additional retrofits to do. Also, some additional lighting controls we can put in place, such as daylight savings controls and such like that, occupancy sensors and all. Water conservation, good opportunities, replacing fixtures with low-flow fixtures, looking at alternative water treatment methods from water softening and such that use a lot of energy. Building weatherization, this is just looking at the building envelope itself, door weather stripping, insulation, sealing gaps and exterior wall penetrations. When you're looking at roofing, adding some additional roof insulation. Window film helps reduce heat loss, also provides additional security for the facilities. Controls and HVAC systems. This is probably where the greatest opportunity is that we saw throughout the buildings. There are numerous older boilers that can be replaced with higher efficiency boilers. We can install heat recovery units on numerous rooftop units to recover some of the waste heat from those that just are part of the ventilation process. Recommissioning the equipment. It's your newer school, the high school, that equipment now is 20 years old, and it needs a little bit of just bringing it back up to what its original operating parameters were, going through and making sure that everything works and recalibrating to what their original operating parameters were. Destratification fans, that's bringing the hot air down from high spaces such as gyms and stuff. Insulate all the piping. Tankless water heaters, I think everyone's probably heard about that. It's a lot of homes going that way. It applies to commercial buildings as well. You have some facilities that are still on steam heat. We'd love to convert those over to either hot water heat or some other type of heating and cooling system that's centralized and more efficient. You have some building management systems throughout the district. Many of them are old and out of date. Bringing those, either updating them or replacing them with newer units that can provide a lot more specific control operation and reduce operating hours and more efficient control sequences. Indoor air quality has been really big, especially over the last year, but it's always something we look at. Since COVID, it's kind of brought indoor air quality to the front of the line as far as things you want to look at and addressing, and we can address those. But, you know, other than making sure the air is clean, we want to make sure that it's of a good quality, that we're bringing in enough fresh air to satisfy the occupant needs, but not bringing in too much where we're wasting energy. So, you know, going through and installing filter devices, installing controls that measure the amount of oxygen and CO2 in the spaces, and making sure we have just the right amount for the occupants that are in that space, and making sure that that indoor air is at a high quality, just improves productivity. It's a great boost to the learning environment as well. Some other potential opportunities we saw, you have the swimming pool over at the Compass Center. Swimming pools are just huge energy wasters. And so lots of opportunities there as far as going with new higher efficiency heaters. You have an old dehumidification heat recovery unit that needs replaced. Liquid pool covers help keep the heat in the water when it's not being used. Variable speed pumps on motors on the pumps, and looking at different ways to chemically treat the pool that are less expensive and less dangerous to store on site. Computer power management opportunities, so you know, all the computers, make sure they're in a sleep state and not using energy when there's nobody using them. Transformer replacements, hood controls both in the kitchen and the laboratory hoods, vending machine controllers, and as far as from a renewable energy standpoint, solar seems to be the best opportunity here in the Midwest. We've implemented several solar power purchase agreements at school districts, which basically install a solar field. There's a third-party investor that owns and operates that field. The school district doesn't have to pay anything for it, but what you'll do is commit to buying power from that investor for a period of time at a lower rate than what you're paying from the utility. So you get the benefit of being green by using solar. You're paying less per kilowatt hour for your electricity. And it's also a great learning experience for the students, because we can build a curriculum around the solar array and teach them about that. This is the utility summary for the school district for the 6 buildings. You're spending just under $830,000 a year for your gas, electric, and water and sewer cost. That's about $1.53 a square foot. And when we compare that to other school districts that we looked at in Michigan, you're on the high end. So the numbers you see there at the next school district down $1.21, those are numbers before they did any type of energy project. So, and typically we will save anywhere from 25 to 30% off that utility cost when we do a project. So potential projects, we looked at this 2 ways. Looking at all the buildings that we addressed, we see there's a potential annual savings of $241,000. If you look at financing a project over 15 years and realizing those savings, that equates to about $3 million worth of work. Exactly what that scope of work is, that's kind of what the next step identifies. When you do the investment grade audit, you'll actually go in, we'll get contractor quotes, calculate specific energy savings for each measure, and put together a cash flow that will show just how everything works together. And then you can pick and choose from those projects and build a list of measures that will work best for you. So, you know, that project would be the things we talked about: lighting, mechanical and controls, indoor air quality improvements and such. And we also, and this is what the cash flow would look like for that. Again, $3 million over 15 years. Right now, we're looking at about 2.25% interest rate. That number fluctuates, but it's been fairly steady at that. And we're looking at $205,000 of that. 241 of that is utility savings, and another 36,000 of that in operational savings. Those are things like maintenance contracts you wouldn't need anymore, or not having to replace lamps and ballast, some of those internal costs. Does anybody have any questions about that?
So
Yes.
So what you're showing us here is we would save $693,000 over 15 years.
Yeah, that's an addition. I'm sorry, that part of it's blocked off on my screen. What you're seeing at the end is, yeah, so what we've done here is create a project that actually each year generates positive savings. So at the end of the 15 years, you would actually have excess savings of about $693,000. Now, again, you can build the project so that you actually take more savings to put into the bank if you want to look at doing additional projects, or we can make it, go $3,250,000 and you use up more of that excess savings. It's kind of, you can build it any way you want. We just want to make it budget neutral so that the savings, whether they're utility savings or operational savings or even of avoided capital savings, which are projects that we can do under here that you might have in the budget 5 years from now or 10 years from now. Take those savings now, do the work, and start utilizing the savings immediately. Did I answer your question okay?
Well, I guess so. Again, you're showing the annual utility savings, then there's operational savings, and then there's the loan amount. That's the payment that we have, the loan amount,
Yes.
yearly payment. And then that's the positive cash flow that results from this.
Yes. Yeah, the difference between the payment and the savings.
Yeah.
We're figuring
And that money comes to the district.
correct.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, the whole goal here is to make sure that there's a positive cash flow. Making sure that when we tell you, here's how much you're going to save, here's what it is over 15 years, we want to make sure that you're positively getting as much as possible over what we say. That way you can do anything else you need with that money or incorporate it in the scope.
And Bruce, is this just for the high school and the middle school?
Well, this one we did for all of the schools. We'll show you here in a second. I think Craig's going to move on to just
all right.
the two schools.
That's fine.
Yep.
Yeah. So we also looked at it knowing that the elementaries, you're looking at doing some possible restructuring with those. So we looked at just the middle school and high school. Very similar, the high school and middle school are the two buildings that have the highest utility usage. So they're going to get the most benefit from this. So when we look at just those two buildings, we're looking at about $189,000 in annual savings. And when you finance that over the 15 years, you're looking at about $2.4 million project. So still a very substantial reduction in energy use. Again, a little less operational savings because now we're looking at just two buildings. But still,
if we were to decide to do this, and instead of borrowing money and selling bonds and just putting the 2.4 million out of our fund equity into this, what would be I guess I'd like to see what it would pay off over 15 years because we're omitting the interest. Or we could speed that payoff up to 10 years.
Yes, you can finance it. You can finance it for 10 years. You can do your own money. We can, take the interest out. I mean, the cost over a period of time, if you're just going to fund it, we can very simple calculation if you want to do that. But again, financing it, there's any number of ways you want to do it.
Okay, is that something you could provide the numbers to, or no?
Sure, absolutely.
Okay. I'd like to see what that comparison is, and obviously not right now, but sometime when you have time over the next week or two.
Sure. So provide a cash flow with no interest rate.
Correct.
Is that what you're looking for, Greg? Sure. I mean, that's really no problem whatsoever.
Okay, I would think that'd be good just for comparison.
Yeah, absolutely.
Would you like to show a 10-year cash flow as well?
Yes, both. Yeah, just a couple different options.
Okay. No problem.
Yeah.
All
right. Bruce, you want to talk about the timeline real quick?
Bruce, you want me to take this one?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead, Brent.
Okay. As you can see, everyone, we've obviously spent a lot of time, and thanks to the staff, at Tecumseh and Tom and Rick in particular for, allowing us to walk through the facilities and to do a preliminary audit. As you can see, there is, we think, a definitive project that can, without question, benefit the district. There's a lot of savings. Craig and I and Bruce have talked about it. It's not very often that you see a project that has so much energy savings. So that's to your benefit. So you're going to come away, if you go through this process, with very efficient facilities, safer facilities, and ones, if you do indoor air quality, with how we're living now with COVID, no question about it, they're going to be much more efficient, safer facilities, all for students and staff. So I think what the logical next step would be, and what we're asking is would be a request for proposal, and that would be advertised in the newspaper for 2 weeks, and then you would allow a specified time, typically around 30 days, for our competitors to respond, to this request for proposal. So once you would receive those, what you're looking at and how you're making your decision is really based on a couple of items. One would be the qualifications and the capabilities of the company you're going to choose, but also what they're putting together in terms of scope of work overall for the district. Does it meet your specific needs? So there's a lot of things you'd have to look at, but ultimately you want to pick a partner that you feel comfortable with and knowing that they're going to be there for the long term, in particular, as you can see, for the next 10 to 15 years. So, again, if everyone is comfortable, and you may have to, contemplate it a little bit, but, we would ask that you give every consideration to move forward with a request for proposal. Again, at this juncture, it doesn't cost the district anything to do it, but you would get the RFP advertised, and then you could have responses that you could analyze, and then you can make a selection, as I said, based on who you feel would be your best partner moving forward into the future. Are there any questions on that? Tom or Rick, any questions? Or
I guess I have one question.
Yes, sir.
How do you guys get paid? So, I mean, you're not going to do all this for free. So.
Yeah, you're right. And once you're selected, we're going to be paid on the project management. We're going to be paid on the engineering and design, oversight of all the subcontractors. Think of us really as a general contractor where everything feeds up through us. Mm-hmm. We ultimately accountable. I always use the term stem to stern. So the project that is designed and developed, mm-hmm. we are accountable for it all the way through. So once it's installed, then we oversee it to make sure it meets your expectations. But most importantly, we're going to also monitor and track the savings that we've guaranteed back to the district. So again, we get paid. We have an overhead and profit that goes in also to this work, but it's predominantly going to be on the project management and also on the engineering and design side.
Okay. And those costs are all built in the project.
It's all built in. It's all inclusive. There's nothing separate. It's one contract.
That's part of that.
Yes. Yes. That is correct. It's all built in. So if you think about it, performance contracting versus traditional plan and specification, if you were to look at everything Craig talked about, you would likely have to hire an engineer. They would have to do some sort of a design for each and every component. Then it goes out to bid. Now you're dealing with a multitude of different companies. What we can provide is bringing all that together under one umbrella and one organization that's going to be responsible and accountable for overseeing all that. And as Bruce said, the beauty of it is if there's any cost overruns, that's not on you, that's on us. There's no change orders whatsoever to the district. So That's the nicety as well of this of this type of approach.
But the school district never cuts you a check. All your profit, all your pay comes from the savings.
You will finance the project. So we're going to be paid up front as the project. So we'll be paid a down payment, and that's typically 20 to 25%. That's for mobilization. Then as the project progresses, we're going to be asked to be paid on progress payments. So we will work all the way through until there is, a final build out, commissioning, and then that's typically 10% is held back on that. And then we would be paid once you agree that the project, again, meets your expectations, and then you'll close out the project. So you will either, if you pay cash, cash is king. That's wonderful. If you want to pay cash for the project, but we'd still bill the same way with the progress of the job. So if you don't pay cash, you're either going to have to do an installment contract, an operating lease, bond financing, something to that effect, and you could do that up to 15 years if you choose to do it. But what we're saying is that if you do borrow money, there's more than enough savings to offset the overall cost, and the resultant effect is you have a positive cash flow. And then you get all these things done at one time versus piecemealing over, say, the next 5, 10, or 15 years. Now you're being proactive versus reactionary.
So basically you present a plan with your markup and the estimated savings, and you pretty much guarantee a certain outcome, and then we agree to that plan at the estimated savings, and then we basically pay you back, and we say with the money we've saved.
Well, we pay out the loan with the money we save.
Yeah. You'll have the loan obligation if you borrow money for the next 15 years. If you elect to go 15 years, you can do 10. It's really at your discretion what you want to do. But typically in Michigan with the legislation, you can go up, do the 15 years. That's where truly the best interest rates are anyway.
Right.
Yes. So, but what
you
what
get
you
paid on savings.
I'm sorry, say it again.
You get paid based on our savings.
What the savings is going to do for you is we're going to guarantee it, but it's going to offset your principal and interest payment on your loan. That's how I would look at it. Does that make sense?
Plus a little bit of extra over 15 years, depending, $400,000 to $600,000 extra.
Absolutely. And again, I can't stress enough. Think about all the possibilities of what you could potentially get done now, versus, God forbid, if something breaks, a boiler or a chiller or air handling unit. Now you're kind of in a reactive mode, right? And you're really in a position where you're having to hurry and find someone to do it. With this, we're going to be able to address everything for you. So in essence, you have peace of mind as well moving forward, that all your buildings are modernized and up to date from a infrastructure perspective, HVAC, lighting, controls, and so on and so forth. Does that make sense?
Sure does.
Okay. I've been doing this for 30 years. So, and I know Craig has as well. So we've done a lot of these projects, and I'm biased. Yes, I am. But I can tell you, I've worked with a lot of school districts over the years, and cities and counties, and it's always been extremely beneficial to them to be able to get a lot of projects done that otherwise, quite frankly, you may never have the opportunity.
What happened?
So I guess the question for the rest of the board is, how do we borrow that money, or how do we go get that? Do we have to do a bond, or how do we get that money up front? To come out of the general fund?
That would be a
The
loan.
general fund is an option, so our bonds or borrowing the money, that's something that needs to go through committee. Normally, if we decided that we needed to or wanted to do this type of project to improve the efficiency of the school, then
Mhm.
what we would do is take a vote and then put it through the committee so that they can decide what they believe the best course of action would be.
And you still have time to think about the method of which you want to finance this project. Again, it will take some time once you do the advertisement for the request for proposal, and you can see that the tentative timeline, it will take a little while to pull everything together and then get through all of the approvals. So you still would have up to probably July, August timeframe before you would have to concern yourself with the financing aspect of it. We're just asking you to consider initiating the next step. The release of the RFP.
All right. Any further questions for these gentlemen?
Not for me.
All right.
Well, thank you
Is there
very
any
much,
other-
guys, girls.
Yes, thank you very much. Is there any
Thanks
other
for
board member
popping in tonight,
discussion on
guys.
it?
I'm sorry, Rick.
Just thanks for popping in tonight. I know that this is another step in a big process, so
Yes, sir.
we appreciate you coming in, sharing the information, and we will be in touch.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you so much for your time.
Good night. Appreciate it.
Right.
All right.
Thank you,
Take care
gentlemen.
now. All right. Bye-bye. Bye.
All right. Any last board member discussion or comments regarding the ESG presentation? All right. That'll move us on to our 8,000 and 9,000 board policies. This brings us right into the home stretch for our policy replacement. Rick?
Right. This is nearing the end of a very long process to reconstruct the district policy manual. All members have access to the board docs policy preview so that you can take a look at that. So far, the steps that we've taken is that the policy has been reviewed specifically in 8,000 and 9,000 by directors who have areas in those policies that specifically relate to their field. Tom, Devin, specifically in these areas, have done a lot of work. Kelly also, especially in operations, making sure that the policy that is provided by Neola matches our practice. So it's gone through that process. It's gone through the policy committee, step by step, item by item. It takes quite a while. I know Tim is on that committee and others, and it's not something that we gloss over. Each word and each portion of those policies, we really talk about to make sure that it's what we are practicing right now. So because it's a discussion item tonight, feel free to ask any questions. If you don't feel like you're up to speed enough to ask questions, then it's available for the next 2 weeks before the board has to vote and adopt those policies. After all of the policies are updated, we will get to work with Neola to start to work on the administrative guidelines. Administrative guidelines are put in place by the administration. The board is advised of those guidelines, but it's not your work to approve those, just to be aware of the matching set of guidelines. So 8 and 9,000 are complete, have been through many steps, and just require your approval in 2 weeks.
So Rick, have the changes we made to 9,000, if we go to the board policy draft section now, the changes we recommended are in there?
Correct.
Okay. All right, so
Yep,
we made those changes.
they'll still be in draft form. You'll still be able to see all the editing marks, the things that were selected and not selected, and be able to ask any questions along the way while you're looking at those. But I wanted to describe the process so that you understand that several sets of eyes have been on all of these policies over the last few weeks.
And they basically look just like what we have printed out here in our packet.
That's correct.
All right. Do we have any other questions about the policies? All right. Next up on our discussion, we have a proposed new course, the SOAR course. Mr. Dennis Niles is here. There he is. Take it away, Dennis. Unmute yourself.
Yeah, good evening. SOAR, well, what does it stand for? SOAR, S-O-A-R, set goals, organize, ask questions, record your progress. It is a Michigan-based curriculum that we've discovered is based on helping our freshman students learn some soft skills. And by soft skills, we talk about things. Well, part of it is this. We expect kids walking into the high school to be knowledgeable about how to learn. And they're not. We don't have any statistical data. We can look at a lot of things, but we can't relate them back to that. But what we have is an overabundance of empirical evidence that shows that supporting a class like this is needed. And based on the reason being is that we know that students don't know or struggle with note taking, study skills, time management, goal setting, homework, project planning, reading skills, test taking, writing strategies, communication. You know, these are all what they call soft skills in the industries today. So what we're doing is using this curriculum that's already been established, already been developed, used by over 100 different schools in Michigan, plus there's 5 universities and colleges, to help our kids, our freshmen, get a better start moving forward. And so that we're kind of front loading their knowledge and giving them the tools to be successful. After we finish the first part of that, we're also going to use that time within that semester to work in their Zello, which is their like career cruising. It's the new program, helps them, and it's required for us to do that. So it's a time period when we can get them started. Admenum, which is our online courses, Google Suite, Suite 360, eSchool, which won't be eSchool next year, our handbook. We're going to use the Link Crew, which is upperclassmen to come in and do presentations and classroom work. They'll have skill application days once a week, where all the things that they learn during the week, they'll be able to apply, such as organization, getting your notes right, communicating with teachers, getting ready to test, things like that. So, you know, basically what we're looking at is getting this class up and all of our freshmen coming in next year. It'd be a mandatory course to get them going. And we've also then started to re-envision what scheduling looks like. As far as, you know, a lot of what we do, we set up for our benefit, our ease of scheduling. Well, we're starting to look at what does that mean for a freshman coming in? Can we make that freshman year You know, it's like this. Everybody says, oh, the most important year is your freshman year coming into high school. You got to do your best. And then we overload them with classes. We give them more than what they're really ready for. So we're taking time to look at that and see if we can envision a way to make that simpler so they can be more productive and get better grades down the road. So that's the SOAR class in a nutshell, long nutshell. So if you have any questions, I'm available to answer any of those.
So do you have any experience with this in your past districts?
Not directly. I don't. I did reach out to a couple of my colleagues that use this. One at Fenville, which is a relatively low income, but they work very hard with underserved kids, and they do really enjoy the use of this program because they use it both at their middle school and their high school level, and it's done what they expected it to do.
So that kind of leads into my next question is, how come we're waiting till 9th grade to do this? Why aren't we doing this in the middle school?
I don't know. I work at the high school.
We actually talked about that.
Get that middle school principal in here.
We did talk about this when
Yes.
Dennis presented to curriculum, and it is something that we see naturally that we would want to have branch down to the lower grade levels. With the restructuring, we're just not able to have that approach yet. So I know that the Dennis and Jacob will be working together in the future. If not for this fall, then future falls.
Yeah, that's the first thing. When I read through this, the first thing that I said was, why are we waiting so long? I mean, it just seems like, I mean, they need these skills in middle school as well.
Yeah, and really what began as a conversation when I first started in November with all of the departments, I met with all the departments individually, and I asked 4 questions was, you know, what are we doing really well? What are we not? What are we struggling in? What can we do to improve, and who takes ownership of that? And the one thing that kept coming up was, man, kids just they don't have the tools to learn all the time. So we were looking, how can we fix that? How can, we want to take ownership of this. We want to fix this as one issue to help our kids be successful through 4 years. So, we were looking at it as a 9 through 12 building, to be honest with you. But yeah, I agree. I mean, it's good for every level. I mean, if they're using it in middle school, high school, and college, it should tell you something.
And I'll piggyback on that, Dennis. During our committee meeting on this, we did note that a lot of the individual aspects of it, for example, keeping a planner, your weekly, daily planner, that is already in practice. The question is, will it align with what they're going to put in place in the high school? Are they going to do something different with it? And I think that's really where we have to look at vertical alignment is what we're doing consistent all the way through, because we're already doing it, or at least some of the building blocks are being addressed down in the middle school. So it's not a drastic, they're starting from ground zero. Our students who have been down in the 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th grade right now are already working with planners and such. And as we discussed in the committee, that making sure we have solid alignment and consistency is going to be the key there.
Okay, and again, just for the board's sake, in terms of, making sure that this matches with our policies, as Dennis mentioned, this idea has gone through his departments, his building leadership team, school improvement. He has presented at the curriculum committee, and now we are here as a board discussion item. So all the steps in the process are getting followed so that all eyes and questions are on it. And it will be something for you to decide on 2 weeks at our next meeting. If between now and then you have further questions or would like more information, we can get that to you.
I have another question. I'm not, that's me. So we're gonna have 2 staff members. One of them looks like they're gonna work 4 out of 6 hours and the other 3 out of 6 hours, right? What are those people doing now that we're not gonna do next year?
Well, one of them is teaching back-to-back 3 hours a day health. So what we're going to do is spread the health out to second semester. So that opens that up. The one teacher that teaches the health was also teaching leadership. She's still going to do that because that's an important class. And then she was teaching TBA as well. So we're bringing that teacher back into the high school. Not that she was out, but just basically into our schedule there. The other teacher was also teaching TBA courses and some computer classes, computer graphics. But we also, what we did was we reactivated computer applications, which is a class that we have in our course catalog currently, just hasn't been offered, but it did address the keyboarding question that we did talk about during the committee meeting as well. And it's also going to have some other classes to help them with computer skills, basically, to get them ready moving forward. So
we're bringing somebody back from TVA?
Yeah, it's just a switch from monitoring 2 hours of TVA to taking on 3 SOAR classes first semester and then 3 computer classes second semester.
Okay, good. Thanks for handling all the details there, Dennis Niles.
Well, if you have any more questions, this is something the staff, as we've gone through it, has been very excited about. So there's a large number of us that are excited to see what it can do. We're hoping that we're going to.
Yeah, and I totally agree with Tony. I think this should be integrated down into lower grades and probably not even stop at middle school, but maybe even earlier years in some way, shape, or form. But this is a very good thing, and I want to thank you.
Well, we're going to get it started and then we'll go from there and see where we can take it.
I have a couple questions. I'm embarrassed if I'm a middle school teacher and the kids that I send up from 8th grade aren't functioning high enough to function as a freshman. That's the whole purpose of whether you leave 8th grade, I got to have a general feel that those kids, before you give a passing grade, can go into the high school and be able to operate. I'm wondering, is the ability to not organize themselves and not take notes, not prepare, is that a dependence possibly on computers? I'm asking. And these people that we're going to hire or that we're going to put in here, what type of certification the teachers have to have for this?
All right, so I can't answer the question about the kids in the organization. I mean, you have to understand there are some kids that roll into the high school very well prepared. They know what they're doing. They're organized. A lot of that comes from home, and they're good to go, and they do well academically. The kids we're talking about just they're not coming to us. I mean, think about it. A freshman in high school is like a deer in headlights a lot of times. And that's what they're doing. You walk them, a lot of times you see them walk around, they're just disorganized. That's just part of it. So we're going to use a folder system. That's part of the SOAR curriculum. And it's not, and we're going to do a in-service for our staff as well. So they're all aware of how this folder system works. So that'll help everybody to reinforce it through the day. As far as certification goes, because it's not Common Core, it's more along the lines of elective work, you don't necessarily have to have a certification to teach this. What we did was we looked for teachers who model what's in SOAR and motivate and relate well with students. And that was a lot of the focus we had on using staff members to work in this. So we know that they're also going to, Crystal Musselman is one of those, and she's actually already looking at incorporating some of the health parts into the SOAR because it just fits as she's looking at it. So that's answers your questions, Greg.
Okay.
Well, it's also important, I think, to note that, you know, it's not as if middle school teachers or even elementary aren't doing some things in their classrooms now to help kids develop these skills. But, you know, if you've ever put popcorn in the microwave, you know, not every kernel pops at the same time. You know, kids are going to get to this at different rates, and having a program that continues to reiterate things for kids over time, and not getting to high school and assuming, well, they've got it or they don't. I think that having a program at the high school allows us to continue to reiterate some of these very important life skills throughout their high school years.
Well, like
No,
the other board members, I
agree.
think we need to have,
That too, that I don't think that's not any knock on any grade prior or anything, but anything we can do to help all kids succeed that's what we're here for. So this is all good.
well, I guess when I read this, when we got it last week, Thursday, Friday, and it says that a minority of our students have these skills, that concerns me. If that's the case, it shouldn't be the majority of the kids that have the skills to be successful in the 8th or 9th grade. That's a concern by the way that was written, and that hit me like a comet. But we can talk more about it later. And instead of killing everybody's time here, we could certainly talk about it, Dennis. I mean, you could just fill me in and see. Sometimes what's written isn't what really is what's meant either.
Correct.
Okay. All right.
All right. Any other questions, comments on the SOAR? All right. Dennis, you're still up to bat here, the THS merit curriculum.
Yep. So the MMC, the Michigan Merit Curriculum, is the state minimum requirements to earn a state high school diploma. It differs greatly from a Tecumseh High School diploma. What we're finding is that there are a small number of students each year that fail to graduate, not just from Tecumseh High School, surrounding communities, because they don't meet the requirements of Tecumseh High School or a variety of other schools. But basically, the requirements of Tecumseh High School and the Michigan Merit Curriculum, the major differences are that Tecumseh High School requires 5 elective credits and 2 credits in world history at the high school level beyond the 18. So that's what gets us to the 23 credits that we require for graduation at Tecumseh High School. So the Michigan Merit Curriculum does not require those 5 elective credits, and the 2 credits of world language can be done in any grade. Basically, what we're asking for is to distinguish another diploma within the Tecumseh School District that is based on the Michigan Merit Curriculum. It would be a Tecumseh District MMC diploma. These students, basically, if we don't do something to get them graduated, a lot of them aren't going to finish high school. And well, we know where that leads to basically in life. We also know where that leads to societally. What we're looking at is we're trying to find a way to get them to move on to the next level in adult life. Even if they get a GED, the military won't take somebody with a GED any longer. They have to have at least a diploma. Michigan says you only need this to get a high school diploma. We should create one that allows just those kids that fit the requirements, fit the need to get a high school diploma as recognized by the state of Michigan. It wouldn't be the same. It's not going to be treated the same. They wouldn't, a student that asks for this has to ask for it before certain times. There's requirements, there's applications. It could be a fourth year student, probably is going to be a fifth year student in some cases. We're just looking at finding ways to keep those people, those young people moving forward and not get installed at high school because they didn't get a credit in art, you know, or they didn't get a world fine arts credit or wood shop credit. They got the minimum that they need in the state of Michigan to graduate. That's what we're trying to do. We know that there's only one other program in the state that in the county that offers this, and that's through Adrian. So, you know, we're also looking at this as a possible recruiting tool in the future too. But again, you know, we would like to make sure that these kids are recognized. I mean, they wouldn't participate in the high school THS ceremony, but we'd like to, if they got their diploma at the MMC level, at least give them, you know, a ceremony. I mean, separate from the large one in June, but get them recognized and get them moving on, because 90% of them, that's all they want. They just want to move on. So that's the MMC diploma.
Thanks, Dennis.
Dennis, we're talking about a very small percentage of students, correct?
Yes.
Well, a couple a year, maybe.
You know, you might go 2-3 years and not have anybody. You might then have a year where you have 4, 5. I could probably think of 2, 3 right now that might fit, that might have fit in this for us now, had we had this for this year. But if other schools start utilizing this program with us, it could be 10, 9, somewhere around in there. But for THS students, it's less than a handful at any time.
So, are we creating a lesser, easier path for some of these students rather than pushing them to achieve their goal and get a THS diploma? Are we creating them a way out and not challenging them like we should be challenging them?
No, Tony, I don't think that is the case, because when you start looking at the application process, they have to go through that and answer some questions. It's not even open for a kid by the time, you know, if a kid comes in at 9th grade and goes, well, I'm just going to fail a bunch of classes to get an MMC, you know, 9 times out of 10, we're going to catch that and do some corrective action before that happens. You know, we're not looking at a senior in a senior year halfway through the year going, I'm just going to dump the last semester and do the MMC diploma because it's past the application deadline. This is something that we're going to look at kids and families and say, look, you're not going to make it. Here's an alternative.
Well, and it sounds like you're looking at a case-by-case scenario. And if you have none for 2 or 3 years and then 4 in 1 year or 1 a year, then it's nowhere near we're pushing kids down this path. We're just trying to save kids that want to move on and have a degree, and they can't have a GED. And it sounds like we're meeting the requirements of the state, but maybe not our school and I think it's a good idea.
I think Kevin, you had the perfect analogy when we talked in the committee, was that this is a life ring they're going to get wet, but at least they have a life ring. And I think that is, I think that was a very good analogy that you used when we talked about it then.
Is there any difference in the funding from the state?
No. They're still in FTE, they're still in class. The kids that come back in a fifth year situation would again be a fifth year. We can count those. The kids that are in a fourth year situation, part of the application process says they must complete a full year in order to be eligible to receive this diploma. So they can't just go mid-year and jump. They got to finish the year with a full schedule.
So did you look at like the last 2 or 3 years and see how many students that dropped out that would have fit in this scenario?
No, I haven't. Because really in the last year or two, I don't know if there's been any, but I can definitely find that out, Tony. I could probably find that out first thing in the morning and let you know.
Yeah, I mean, I agree there's a life ring for people, but I want to make sure it's not just an easy way out for some student that doesn't want to apply themselves. I mean, you know, getting that high school diploma is that's to some people, to everyone, it should be a significant event in their life. And sometimes we teach kids skills that you work hard, good things come, and I don't want to give them an easy way out. So I worry about that.
Yeah, I am not somebody that wants to give anybody an easy way out. That is not what I believe in. But I do believe in giving people at least an opportunity to move forward with their life. So, but I understand what you're saying. Absolutely.
Right. We're not talking about, come on, we're not talking about 50 people a year or even 10. We're talking about one every so often, or 2 or 3, maybe 1 a year, 2 a year. You know, I think we should help everyone we can.
I agree, Susan. I just don't want it to, this one now to turn into 10 in 3 years, right?
No. Well,
that's my fear.
Not 10.
I think this is more of an unadvertised option for those kids who are, you know, going into their senior year and they need X number of credits and there just aren't enough school hours in the day for them mathematically to get it. They're going to fall, you know, a credit or 2 short. This is that life ring to make sure that instead of being held back for a 5th year, or if they're already in their 5th year, you know, they're not finding themselves stalled over 1 or 2 credits. You know, they can get that diploma and get on.
Or find themselves overwhelmed and drop out.
Right. And I'm personally the mother of a child who got a GED. So I know they're few and far between, but I'm so thankful for the chance that he got to have a GED. And if he could have done better by having that, if that opportunity would have been there, you know, that would have been good too. But it does help kids move on, and I'm all for that.
It would give them an opportunity to still join the military or other options that would not be available to a GED student or just a dropout student.
And I think the application process, the request period, what the requirements are, the fact that they have to meet that, the fact that, you know, they're going to have to sign it, the parent's going to have to sign it, it's going to have a principal's approval. I mean, these are all things that are, we're looking at safeguards down the line so it doesn't become that easy way out. I mean, I totally understand what Tony's saying. Absolutely.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, I totally get it too.
But if you have any other questions, totally open.
Thanks, Dennis.
Welcome. Thank you.
Thanks, Dennis.
All right. Thank you, Dennis.
Thanks, Dennis.
See y'all. Have a nice night.
You too.
That will bring us up to curriculum review cycle. Jacob is here. There he is. Good evening, Jacob.
Good evening. Thanks for having me. Tonight, for those out there who don't know me, I'm Jacob Anastasov. I'm the 7th and 8th grade principal this year, but I also manage a lot of the school's curriculum as a curriculum coordinator. So I'm going to share my screen real quick. I got a basic presentation kind of guide us through some of the steps that we have, and some of it's a little bit easier to see when it's more visual. All right, you able to see the screen?
All good.
Okay. All right, so to go through this, to give a curriculum review update, I'm going to give an overview first of what exactly, this is that we're talking about. So we started this in the 1920 school year. So last year, kind of when Mr. Hilderley came on board, the curriculum review process is a process where we, exactly like it sounds, we look at the district's curriculum, but we do it through a very structured process. And it's very intentional, step by step as we go through it to really look at, is this the curriculum we currently need? Because as everybody knows in our current educational setting, everything is constantly changing and the needs of our kids are changing. So we need to be in a constant review mode as well for the curriculum that we're offering. So the curriculum review process is mainly intended for major curriculum review and changes, and I'm going to get into that a little bit, where what we're looking at doing is somewhere around a 5 or 6 year cycle. In the 1920, last year, we already completed the pilot program in our first program of the math 6 through 12, where we chose McGraw-Hill Reveal. We're working on with that for the next about 5.5 years. This year, we're going through the K-5 math review process. That's the one I'm going to talk the majority about today. And we're going to start the ELA process here coming up soon. And then next year, we'll finish the ELA, start either science or social studies, do science or social studies the next year, get to electives, and then the 5-year process starts over again, unless we choose to do a 6th year and kind of have an off year to take a look at them. This gives us an opportunity to, like I said, dive in deep into the curriculum and to have not only some maybe needed changes, but also lasting changes. We know that it takes, a good 2 to 3 years to really establish curriculum and really see what's going on as far as data. So if you go through a correct review, choose the right curriculum, it is healthy for a district to maintain it over those 5 or 6 years before trying to change again. So we don't have alterations every single year. And that's part of the reason why, we did it with the math last year for grades 6 through 12. Now with this doesn't mean we only look at the curriculum every 5 or 6 years, right? We're still every year, we're gathering data, we're reflecting, we're looking at feedback, we're making modifications, but we're talking if there's curriculum either purchased or heavy curriculum design, that's more of the 5 or 6 year process. But there are alterations happening each and every year. So like I said, I'm going to focus on the K-5 because that's what's happening now for our update. So why we're focusing on K-5? Because last year we finished up the grade 6 through 12 math. And so usually when we're going to do our curriculum review cycles, we're going to do it K through 12. So we look at the entire subject. We've been with, it was Pearson math. It's now Savvis math, but we've been with Envision is what they call it, the program, for a while now. So some of the teachers have expressed a view to look into the curriculum a little bit more, and it's a perfect opportunity to align us with the rest of the district and take a look at our students and teachers' needs. So with this curriculum review process, we want to, essentially we want it to be, and it is going to be teacher-led through this process. So actually the 612 was teacher-led by our department heads through that process. The K-5 is going to be is currently being led by Julie Cassie, who's one of our 4th grade teachers. So we took it on as a project. She's going back and also getting her admin certification. So it's part of the project for that. She was a perfect fit. She's been doing a great job. So a lot of about what I'm about to share for the next couple minutes has been heavily her work that she has done. And definitely her and her team deserve the credit for it. So we started, Julie and I and a couple other teachers started some discussions last year with this a little bit. We talked to a few of the sales reps and talked to the teaching staff, and we were getting a general feeling that, you know, a change was potentially needed, or at least we need to review what's out there. And then, like I said, when grade 6 through 12 made the change, it kind of kickstarted K-5 wanting to do a change as well. So the main curriculum review process I'm about to go over started just this past January, where we really started to kick in with some of the changes. So just to give you a quick outline, just to give you an idea of what the review process looks like. Like I said, a lot of discussion beforehand to even start it, but in January started gathering curriculums. Julie started this even before January and December as well. We contacted reps. So we started to get some of the print documents, the materials, and some of the electronic as well. So that way we could start getting that into teachers' hands so they could start taking a look at it to make an educated decision on that next step. So in the February, March timeframe that we have, this is where we started to do curriculum meetings by grade level that we have. So part of this process was to get to this point, Julie worked to gather teacher leadership teams before we had this. So she put out surveys to not only look at what was the interest in different curriculums out there, but she also put out surveys to gather leadership teams. So since it's a K-5 initiative, she wanted representation at each grade level. So at this point, the leadership team that we have going through with this has 2 teachers roughly at each grade level. And then the responsibility also of those 2 teachers is to communicate back to the rest of their team. And we did it through volunteering and see who was interested to lead this process. And we involved the general ed teachers, special ed teachers, and kind of an array of different individuals to give their input throughout this. So starting in February, late February, this early March, so, you know, the past few weeks, they started their curriculum meetings and they're doing it by grade level. Part of that is because it's pretty difficult to get everybody together at once. So they're doing it piece by piece, and they're starting to review what they narrowed down to be the 4 curriculums they're looking at right now. So Envision is the one we're currently working with. Everyday Mathematics is through McGraw-Hill. It's heavily used throughout Washtenaw County, a little bit within Lenawee County. Ready Classroom Mathematics through Curriculum Associates is definitely an upcoming and pretty successful math curriculum, not only Michigan, but throughout the nation. And then Reveal, that's another one by McGraw-Hill. So if Reveal sounds familiar, obviously to any of you, Reveal is the program that's currently being used by our grade 6-12, is going to be adopted, like I said, for this year and next 5 years. Reveal was actually not available for K through 5 when we were doing our process. K through 5 Reveal was brand new around December, this past December, January. So they were developing it in the process. So we really, to involve Reveal, we could not have done that before this school year to even involve them in it. So a lot of these programs have 2020 or 2020 year updates and 2021 year updates. So they're pretty current with what they're doing. So they started reviewing these 2 by 2 at these meetings. Now, before this happened, Julie and her team, they put out at every building, they had print materials. They gave them electronic access to the materials. They asked questions. The coaches became knowledgeable our instructional coaches became knowledgeable of the materials. And they had time to kind of process through some of the stuff, ask questions, play around with it a little bit to start, like I said, so they could create an understanding of it going into these review processes. During this whole time, they continue to use Envision. So they might test a few things out in their classroom if they need to, but they're continuing the Envision process that we've had, or the Envision program that we've had for the past few years. So heading into late March, and these are just some dates, and these are the tentative dates put out. And so Julie's going to try to keep these, but the goal is by around mid-March is to narrow it down to 2 choices. And then they're going to look at presentations of those 2. They're going to dive a little heavier in it. Some of the teachers have definitely expressed testing either certain units or certain lessons out in each of their classes to end the year to get a feel for each of the curriculums and how that it interacts. And then they're going to review different recommendations made by the leadership team or the grade level team surrounding them. So in April, after they gather all their data that they have, they're going to start to gather more feedback. So the goal is obviously to narrow it down to one. If they do not get it narrowed down to one, if they feel like we have two incredibly strong curriculums that it's challenging to come to a decision, there is a possibility for them to go into next year piloting some of these. Obviously, the advantage of narrowing it down to one is we can do a full year pilot or initial rollout with the entire staff, which is exactly what we want to do. Even if there's only one, you still a lot of times call the first year the pilot year as you're getting PD and getting ready for it. But the other advantage of narrowing it down to one in the spring here is we also get to use part of the spring, summer, heading into the fall for professional development to prepare teachers for these, because each of these curriculums do take, there's definitely a learning curve to them to be able to use them correctly, and the assessments and different things that come with them. So if the selection becomes more clear, we're going to be giving the curriculum committee and the board, like I'm doing today, continual updates, but Julie and her team will actually bring the recommendation to the curriculum committee, start there, and then head to the board, obviously, for full approval if they're able to narrow it, like I said, down into one, or at least give the two. So the ELA part I'm going to give quickly, and then I'll open up for questions. So ELA it's going to be quick because we have not started this process yet. There's definitely, like I said, what starts every curriculum, there's definitely been a lot of conversation amongst teachers and a lot of interest to start looking at the English language arts curriculum. Currently, the grade 6 through or K through 6 uses Wit and Wisdom and supplemental materials, but grades 7-12 use mainly teacher created curriculum with supplemental materials as well. So there's been two things. Grades K6 has shown some interest in looking at if there's other curriculums out there, or maybe how they can utilize Wit and Wisdom even better. And grade 7-12 has showed interest of maybe is there something out there different than what they're doing that they can utilize to create maybe more consistency across the board. So that's also why we look at usually curriculum through a K-12 lens, because we also want to create some consistency throughout the district. It helps for additional teacher conversation. It helps for collaboration and partnerships, and also starts bridging those links between high school and middle school and elementary and middle school, which is what we want to do as well, and not keep those so isolated and separate. And one thing, not keeping them separate. One thing I didn't mention, the math one, we're keeping in communication with the high school and middle school department heads throughout the math development as well. They're welcome to come to meetings, those type of things, and communicate with their teachers, because again, it's not just a K-5 decision. Even though they might make the ultimate one, we want to make sure that the upper grade levels are taking a look at things as well. And like I said, making sure that the flow and the success going from 5th grade to 6th grade is successful. So the ELA, like I said, we're going to begin in the spring through discussions with teachers, feedback, creating teams, looking at organizations, and we're going to head into next year. ELA is a little bit different than math. There definitely is curriculum programs out there you can buy, but ELA has it can be a way more open-ended too. So it does take a bit longer at times to be able to process through the ELA, and ELA can be a bit more successful by piloting a couple programs potentially next year too. So one of our goals is to first semester next school year to be able to review, get through the review process as a whole, and potentially use second semester as an opportunity to run various units to help make, as I said, a more educated decision headed into that year. And then, and like I said, it'll be done systematically, so that way teachers can be able to compare the programs with each other and be able to talk successfully through it. Like I said, then make that recommendation to the board. And as I said in the beginning, the next year's and social studies or science, we are debating about starting those next year as well, and then, or one of them, and then doing the following one the next year, and then the electives. We may have to double up a little bit on some, and that's basically because we want to get this curriculum review process started. So that's why you're seeing a little bit of overlap, which once we get this process rolling, it becomes a 5 or 6 year process. We don't have to see as much overlap, and we can focus on some of those individual subject areas. So that's kind of where we're at right now. I can come back to my presentation if we have to, but I can stop sharing for now.
Good job.
Thanks. Like I said,
Thank you.
it's only partially organization from here. Like I said, Julie, well, the middle school and high school math department kind of started it up. Julie's and her team, like I said, has done a fantastic job leading the way.
I have a question, Jacob. How much will it help next year when we have, I know you spoke, and I appreciate that you spoke about the vertical alignment, involving the middle school and high school people. How much, and this is a question, how much of a benefit is that going to be with 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th grade all right there next to each other with a horizontal alignment of our curriculum? Not math, because that's already, except for 5th grade, that's set. But when you start moving forward with the ELA and the science and social studies.
So being able to, you're saying have the grades 5, 8 all in one.
Yeah, the
grade
horizontal
level?
alignment between classrooms, how does that help? I mean, does it help?
Yeah. And so, obviously having the more individual or more grade levels you have in the building is not only going to, the horizontal alignment between the grade levels themselves, being able to communicate with each other. Because obviously right now, 7, 8 is split into, 2 different buildings. So there is, communication, but it's going to increase the communication amongst the, the grade levels or the within 7th grade, within 8th grade, as we see within the 5th and 6th. And there's a lot of teacher excitement about being able to recommunicate back with 5 through 8 as well, and kind of reestablish some of those connections. We see so many changes from a 5th grader up to an 8th grader, and being able to establish some consistency within the curriculum itself can really make that process a lot more smooth. And that's where I'm talking about too with the vertical alignment, is not to forget the connections we have between 4th and 5th and 8th and 9th and connecting those buildings. It's a little bit harder to do at times, but if we're more intentional about our processes, we can make it happen.
Okay, and then for the 3-4 curriculum alignment, would it be something where, and maybe this is more of a Rick question, where the Herrick Park and Patterson buildings could be together, so those teachers at least once a month or every other month, whatever you deem necessary, they get together so they can compare what they're doing by grade level as well?
Correct. And we've talked administratively with Jamie and Tricia about those buildings being the same staff in split campuses. So they want to be doing a lot of things the same. We want our kids to have a consistent, comparable education all the way through, whether they're at South or North, whether they're at Herrick Park or Patterson, all kids getting the same experience.
All right, thank you. Good job, Jake.
Thanks. Any other questions?
All right. Going once, going twice. Jake, you're off the hook for tonight. Thank you for coming by.
Thanks for having me.
All right, that'll bring us up to gifts. We have some donations and gifts for the school. Mr. Hilderly?
We do, and here's an overused contemporary word: organic. This group of donations happened kind of in an organic manner. With the reorganization process, Will Casper, who is one of the PE teachers at Compass and will be working with middle school kids next year, has been proposing since last spring a strength and conditioning program at the middle school. And because he's been doing that, he's been talking with colleagues, with friends, with acquaintances, and through those conversations, people have been offering to make donations to create a strength and conditioning room or rooms, facilities with equipment at what will be the middle school again next year. So these donations are from those conversations, not officially solicited, by Will or anybody, but through conversations and his desire to develop a quality program, these donations have come about. So we're very happy to present these and encourage the board to accept these. Also, I want to mention that we have some money in the athletic activity fund created by this last several years of the Hoopster programs. And we're going to allocate $15,000 from that activity fund in addition to these dollars, and create what should be a very hearty strength and conditioning program for our middle school moving forward. So urge you to accept these later on action items with our gratitude.
You want to read off the names, or are they going to be done during the?
Do we have a budget for this weight room? Do we have a?
Yeah, that's what I was just gonna ask. What is the estimated cost?
We're developing that. We've had a couple of organizational meetings. When we get the full scope in view, we'll pass it through curriculum and bring it to the board for discussion and action.
So the 2850 is just money towards a little bit bigger project.
Right.
Okay. Good.
Rick, would you like to, well, you know what? I can do it. We will read off Nicholas Pound donated $1,000. The Tecumseh Wrestling Club donated $1,000. Jim Driscoll, $500. E.S. Wagner Company was $250. And Casper's House, $100. And Becky, who was the add-on?
Martin Home Center, 1,000.
Martin Home Center was $1,000. Sorry, I couldn't read my own writing.
That's okay.
So those are the donations we had for that. We thank each of you with a great gratitude. Thank you.
It's a great project.
Thank you.
Yeah, and you'll hear more about it. It is something that's in development, and like I said, it's got to still go through the committee process and come to the board for approval. But these funds will be all added together with our athletic activity funds, and I think you'll be pretty pleased with the outcome.
All right. Thank you, Rick. That'll bring us to our action items for tonight. Ms. Brooks?
I hereby move to approve the resolution whereby the Tecumseh Public Schools Board of Education recognizes the association as the exclusive bargaining representative for an administration unit described as all building principals, assistant principals, athletic director, and MTSS coordinator, and further directs that the superintendent will promptly notify the association of this action.
Support.
Thank you. Any last minute discussion? All right, roll call vote. Becky?
Aye.
Suzanne?
Aye.
Tony?
Aye.
Tim?
Aye.
Greg?
Aye.
The chair votes aye. Resolution is passed. Becky?
I hereby move to accept with thanks the following gifts for the middle school strength and conditioning program. Nicholas Pound, $1,000. Tecumseh Wrestling Club, $1,000. Martin Home Center, $1,000. Jim Driscoll, $500. E.S. Wagner Company, $250. And Casper's House, $100. Thank you.
Support. I'll give it to
Tony got you on that one.
You got it.
Yeah, give it to Tony.
Roll call vote. Becky?
Aye.
Suzanne?
Aye.
Tony?
Aye.
Tim?
Aye.
Greg?
Aye.
The chair votes aye. All donations are accepted. Again, thank you with great gratitude. Next item on our agenda, consent agenda. Ms. Brooks?
I hereby move to approve the consent agenda, which includes the following items. Minutes from the regular board meeting of February 22nd of 2021.
Or
Roll call vote. Becky,
Aye.
Suzanne,
Aye.
Tony,
aye.
Tim,
Aye.
Greg.
Aye.
The chair votes aye. Consent agenda is approved. Next up is our superintendent's report. Mr. Rick Hilderly.
Yeah, nothing that's written on the agenda, but something that I want to advise the board about and probably will ask for discussion at the next meeting and possibly even action. We've got a parent group that has been working with high school administration for specifically prom and senior trip. Now they're also interested in talking about graduation, but that's really more of a high school administration event. So they're talking about giving support, not so much organization. But for prom and senior trip, they're well on their way to being organized. They would like to, get tickets printed and going and so on. In the meantime, I have asked for legal guidance on the issue, and I will be providing two different opinions for you, one from Troon and one from our ISD legal advisor, because the issue is split. They really take two positions in their opinion. The first is, yes, you may, the board may, through an agreement, release funds that the class has been earning for themselves over the years in high school to a parent group to organize something out of state. So they say, yes, you can do that, and here's how you can do it. And then they go on to say, but you may not want to do it, and here's why. So just know that I'll be providing information and that's going on. And we certainly want to do whatever we can within the guidelines of this crazy, crazy situation to provide the best experience we can for our students. But we have to consider issues of liability and governmental immunity and, COVID requirements and so on. So I will be giving you some information over the next few days about that. And I wanted to give you a heads up there. I also know that there may be interested parents from that group who are viewing tonight. And I want them to know that we support the fact that they're working with us and we're going to do everything that we can to make the proper recommendations for this to go forward. So you'll hear more about it from me and be able to read the guidance that I've been given. I've also heard that the state of Michigan and the health departments are going to be providing guidance, but I'm just not confident that that's going to come with the speed that we need to get these things set. So we'll see how that adds in, but I'll provide you with what we know now. That's it for me.
All right, that'll take us to items scheduled for next agenda. March 22nd, 2021 is our next board meeting. We'll have discussion items on the monthly finance reports, our continuity of learning plan, quarterly board report on the superintendent's goals, and continuity of learning plan. That takes us to our closing tonight. We have public comment. We do have public commenters tonight. A couple of them here. Let me get them admitted one by one. It's Stephen Andrews, correct?
Yes, sir. Good evening.
Good evening, Stephen. The floor is yours for 3 minutes.
I was briefly asked to discuss parental support for board support to obviously push for the opening full-time in school and get off some of this hybrid. Obviously, Mr. Hilderly expressed some concern about other activities just prior to us coming on. I guess I would really like the board to consider several aspects. One, that there are several publications that are currently been out, not only with the CDC, but more importantly, the American Academy of Pediatrics that state that obviously we should be getting our schools opened full-time, and that there is a detrimental effect having some of these hybrid or non-structured form classes with our children. Maybe not so much our older children. If you don't know me, I have twins that are seniors in the high school, and they've been born and raised in this town. And what we've been dealing with, although they've affected certain social aspects of what we've had to all go through, but the end result, it hasn't deterred them from a health and safety standpoint. They're still going to move on. I'm more worried about the younger kids that we may be creating damage that will be difficult to recover from. That's the grander issue I think every parent has in this community. So I would say that we support some of this this literature and get away from some of the political ideology that has a tendency to oversight what we're dealing with. Furthermore, you know, in a final thought, I've been a police officer for a very long time. And as a result, what we've been seeing on the street, maybe not so much in the beginning of this pandemic, but more importantly, in these past 4, 5, 6, 7 months, has been the true effect of what not going to school, not having the organized discipline structure of everyday schooling is effectively dealing with our children. We're seeing increased calls of service for criminal mischief and activity, but more importantly, we're having a mental health calls that are dramatically increased. It's something that I've not seen in the entirety of my career, and it's become very difficult from their increased use of substance abuse, deep depression, domestic violence within the households, the contemplation, the pushing towards things such as suicide has been somewhat of an astronomical event that we've been dealing with these past several months. If the board has any, and the administration has any wherewithal to continue to push to get outside of this hybrid perspective, and more importantly, into a more structured discipline organizational aspect, I think we would say that's probably the best thing that needs to do in course of action. And if you guys have that latitude, outside some of the other issues that obviously Mr. Hilderly had said about some of the organizational things, there are examples out there by these previous stated organizations on how we can effectively do this in a safe manner. So I appreciate the time, and I'll yield the rest of my time for the other parents involved that I'd like to discuss about this.
Thank you, sir. We appreciate your comments tonight.
Thank you.
Good evening. I don't believe it's Lori. I believe it's Brian. All right. It is Brian, not Lori, correct? You're muted, sir. There you are.
All right.
Welcome. The floor is yours for 3 minutes, sir.
Okay. I'd like to thank the board for the opportunity to give tonight to talk to you guys. So how did I get here? After the election, the actions of this board have left me feeling sick and embarrassed. The fact that Becky Brooks, John Benzing, Susan Moore ignored the results of this past election is concerning. Kevin Johnson finished last out of 5 candidates. Lynn Davis beat him by over 1,000 votes. How did this happen? Blatant favoritism, personal agendas, ignoring the voice of the voters. It is shocking to me that you, Kevin, would even accept this seat. However, not surprising, because a couple of board members have personal agendas. This is an absolute abuse of power. Now I'd like to switch gears and bring up this past investigation that is a catalyst that brings me here now. I think the voters in our community need to know that on Saturday, November 28th, 2 school board members who are identified in the report as B1 and B2 acted independently of the board upon a tip about boys playing basketball in Toledo from 2 disgruntled parents who contacted B1 and B2. B1 and B2 then drove to Toledo location of the tournament to confirm the boys were playing basketball. B1 and B2 stated that they were inside the facility and observed one coach wearing a coach's attire and a Tecumseh Indians shirt. They didn't know him, however, they believed he was a varsity coach. It was great for B1 and B2 to attend an out-of-state, out-of-season tournament. However, they did not and have not yet attend a single home game this season. Are these appropriate actions of school board officials? Is it the job of school board officials to act independently of the school board? To investigate young men playing in a non-school related event? To take photos of our kids and used for personal agendas without our consent? And follow a coach home? Tecumseh families, this should bother you. This is a disgrace, and I hope Rick does not accept John Zajak's resignation. In closing, since the paper seems not willing to ask these questions, I have a few questions for Kevin and Becky. Was it the 2 of you that acted independently of the school board? Was it the 2 of you that drove to Toledo to investigate our young men? Was it the 2 of you that took the photos without parent consent? Was it the 2 of you that followed a coach home? Many of us know the answers to these questions. I believe these actions of the 2 school board members, officials, are unethical, vindictive, and a violation of the MASB guidelines. I'm asking the 2 of you to resign immediately. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next up, we have I believe, let's hope, it only comes up as iPhone. I believe the iPhone is Sherry. Are you there?
Yes, I'm here. I'm sorry. Let me get my video.
No problem. We'll wait a minute.
It's not allowing me to start my video.
All right. Well, if you like, just tell us who you are and the floor is yours for 3 minutes.
Okay. Hi, my name is Sherry Wiedeich, a parent of a sophomore here at Tecumseh High School. We are schools of choice. We chose Tecumseh. Even though it's a 30-minute drive, we live south of Adrian. We chose Tecumseh. Even when the class sizes were huge compared to our son's parochial elementary school class size of 4, we chose Tecumseh. Even though my husband, myself, and our oldest child attended and graduated from Sand Creek, we chose Tecumseh. Even though I work for the crosstown rival of Adrian Public Schools as an educator, instructional coach, we chose Tecumseh. Even when many fled to Clinton, Britton Deerfield, and other schools, we chose Tecumseh. Why? The Zajac family, specifically John, taught our son to love basketball even more, believed in him, inspired him, and became our friend. He coached our son for many years. Why? We believe the teaching staff at Tecumseh had not been at the heart of Tecumseh's very public issues with turmoil and political mudslinging. We believed in Tecumseh. Why? The teachers knew my son within the first weeks of his freshman year. We were so impressed. We believed in Tecumseh. Why? Our son experienced a 20-0 freshman basketball season. Wow. Few can say they have had that perfect season. Now, we are questioning our choice. Why? Political garbage, parents not staying in their lane, school board members acting unethically, vendettas, greed, all the things we teach our children not to do. All the things that COVID supposedly was to remind us of how life is precious and enjoy it, how soon that's been forgotten. All the things we promised our son that high school would be fun. Adults are ruining that. All the things my family and I stand for, believe in, and try to live by, we cannot stand back and watch reckless actions hurt so many souls. No one is perfect. Everyone makes mistakes, but the accusations against Mr. Zajac are not even offensive, damaging, nor unlawful. He has done a tremendous job in a year that was never to be forgotten. He has worked countless hours of managing our team schedules and coaching staffs. And you mentioned Hoopsters. Look how much he has raised for TPS in that aspect. Did we make the wrong choice? I certainly hope not, but prove it. Zajac is a target. Why? Because of someone else's insecurities and lack of direction. I know process, and Tecumseh has lacked this. Get it together. Board members have roles. Are they following those roles? Once again, we are experiencing unnecessary controversy. We have one more child. She's in her last year at our parochial school. Do we get to choose Tecumseh for her? The answer to that question lies with you. Thank you.
All right, thank you for your comments. Next, we have Melissa, I'll slaughter it, Reisinger. Let me get her in the meeting here. Melissa, are you with us? Melissa? All right, well, Melissa is signed in, but I am not hearing her, so I'm going to leave her. Wait, I think she's here. Can you hear us, Melissa? You're muted, Melissa.
Okay, can you hear me?
We can hear you now, Melissa. Good evening. The floor is yours for 3 minutes.
Okay, good evening. Yes, I can hear you. My name is Melissa Reisinger. I am here to advocate for the full-time in-person learning for our high school students for the continuing school year. I am currently an instructional assistant at Tecumseh North Learning Center, and I'm really proud of our district for making the choice to return to in-person learning as an option for all of our elementary kids and families. Because of my role in the school, I've witnessed firsthand a full functioning school setting that has proven to be safe. The American Academy of Pediatrics, which somebody did bring up earlier, is a group that represents and guides pediatricians throughout the country. They were pushing way back in June of 2020 for all students to be physically present in classrooms for the sake of their well-being, specifically because in-person learning has some major benefits, including mental health, physical health. It creates a sense of belonging and community with our young adults, and decreases feelings of loneliness, which I know a lot of our kids are experiencing right now. While we know that there's no way to completely eliminate all the risks, Nothing is with risk. Why are we holding these young adults back from enjoying what's left of their school year? It is our obligation to make sure that their mental health is on track. And our seniors, they should be flourishing with their peers before they graduate and go off into the world. Beyond facts and statistics, this is very personal for me as well. My youngest daughter, Alexa, is a senior at Tecumseh High School. She's the second to last of 6 kids who have graduated from here. She has watched 4 siblings go through the system, and because of all the uncertainty, she is more confused than any of them ever were about her future. Her classroom now consists of 4 walls and a Sealy Posturepedic. I worry about her and all the lifelong friends that no longer come to my house. These kids need to be together. They're lacking very important social skills right now that help them thrive as adults. Our seniors need to finish their 12-year journey together, not online, with the little time that they have left. And I feel like if we do not fight and work to make this happen for them, I'm afraid we're going to fail them. Again, we successfully have full-time face-to-face learning for elementary and middle school kids, and I'm extremely confident that we can and should do the same thing for our high schoolers. According to the CDC, thousands of vaccines have been administered, and the number of COVID cases continue to decline. This is the time that we need to support our kids, pave the way for next year, and get back to normal. Please consider letting them return and finish their journey in person with their peers and a positive high school experience that they can remember.
Thank you, Melissa. Your audio was
Thank you.
a little broken up. Is everyone else satisfied that they could hear enough of Melissa? Okay.
Yeah, I think I got the message.
They should be flourishing.
Okay. Thank you.
Online with a little time that they.
Thank you.
Get away. Thank you. All right. Jennifer, you are up next.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for giving us a few minutes tonight. I know it's been a long meeting. We've all been listening to you guys go through it.
Still on, but give me a few minutes.
My name is Jennifer Cornish, and I am the Early Learning Center librarian at North and South. I also have 3 sons that are currently at Tecumseh schools, 2 of which are in the hybrid program currently implemented at the high school. We've stayed positive and supportive of our boys and this new way of learning. However, over the last several months, we've become acutely aware of the social and emotional struggles of distance learning. We've watched our boys be online in their beds for 6 to 8 hours, 3 times a week. They're socially cut off from their support network of friends, their teachers, their clubs, and all of the adults at the high school. Our senior has lost his drive for his future that he's been working for the last 4 years. And he's beginning to give up on his dreams that he had for college and beyond. This is all due to being alone learning for the last year. Our junior feels cut off even on his days at school. When he enters a classroom, he's been one of 2, maybe one of 3 or 4 when he's doing face-to-face. He sits alone at lunch every day due to the fact that his lunch mate has now gone to distance learning because his lunch mate does not want to have to go into quarantine and lose time for baseball season. So my son, my 16-year-old son, sits alone in class and he sits alone at lunch. The reason why I'm deciding to speak up now, because we as parents have been talking to each other pretty consistently about our students' struggles. But a short 15 days ago, this is exactly how my cousin's son felt. He was doing distance learning. He felt lost and alone. He is a 4.0 student and an athlete, an avid hockey player. He had just bought his first car. He had to save up 50% of it. and he had no pre-existing conditions to forewarn any of us of what was going to come. 24 hours later, he ended his life. He felt hopeless and alone and disconnected from his social network and his peers, our safety net that we have at the high school. I'm speaking to you today to implore you to consider opening up the schools to anyone who is ready to be back full-time. I understand that we'll be doing distance Wednesdays throughout the rest of the school year, but please, for the sake of our students' mental and physical health, please allow them to come back in-person learning 4 days a week. There's so much more that we need to do for the safety of our kids. One of those needs to be to open our schools for the students who are ready to return. Thank you.
Thank you for your time tonight, Jennifer.
Thank you, Jennifer. Sorry for your loss.
All right, that concludes public comment for tonight. That will take us to board member comment or discussion.
Rick, how long would it take to get us back into classes face to face? You're muted.
Yeah.
There we
There he
go.
is.
There was the audio lock was on. Tim, your question was how long would it take? Well, we would probably need a few days to get the teachers organized. I think realistically, my goal was to try to get it done potentially after spring break. It wouldn't necessarily have to take that long. What the board would have to do to take action would be to, and our next meeting, one of the agenda items is to reconfirm the continuity of learning plan. From the hybrid to 4 days a week really wouldn't take that. Our continuity of learning plan actually started out with full face-to-face. We changed in October because of the number of positive cases that were knocking 30 to 50 kids into quarantine at any one time. Sent out survey information. I provided the survey data for the board members over the weekend, so you've been able to see that. It looks like, at least from the number of people who participated in the survey from the family side, that between 65 and 75% of people said that they would probably come back 4 days face to face. So then the next issue that comes up is social distancing in the classrooms. In our continuity of learning plan, we did not say at the high school that we would be able to meet the 6 feet requirement. So we would, in order to put everybody back face to face who wants to be there, simply have to make the change, set the date, notify the teaching staff, give them time to prepare, and then implement the change. If we did that within the next few days, then at the board meeting, when we recertify the plan, we would just have to submit that we changed again from the hybrid back to full face-to-face. But that's a rough timeline. We could get it done in a few days.
So could we be back to face next Monday with the virtual Wednesday?
I believe that that's realistic.
Okay. All right. Well, then I'm going to make a motion right now that we move back to face with the virtual Wednesday starting next Monday.
I would second that, but I do want to say that I don't know why we stayed out of it why didn't we go right back into face-to-face? I mean,
When we went to the hybrid, shortly after that was when all high schools in Michigan were put in full distance learning.
okay,
That took us up until Christmas break, and then we came back out in January. After surveying parents at that time, confidence was still pretty low, it was around 50%. Now looking more like 65 to 70% like to be back full face to face.
I guess all I'm saying is that I think we should be face to face. I think everyone should be face to face. I don't know how hard we have to follow these rules of the you know, the State Department or the Health Department, but anybody that wants to be face to face, and I know there were people on waiting lists before, but as far as I'm concerned, there's no science that even says kids shouldn't be in school together without masks, much less with them, or half there and half not. And then, you know, somebody tests positive, but they have no symptoms, and then they're all gone, you know, locked down because of the restrictions. I just want to know how far we can keep kids in school without violating too much of the rules of the, you know, without getting sued, I guess is where I'm going with this. Because I think kids should be in school, and any parent that wants their kid to be in school their kid should be in school, period. I think we should accommodate everyone to the best of our ability. So,
all right.
And in
Procedurally,
relation to Tim's motion, I would suggest, because it's not an item on the agenda.
Yeah, we can't.
That it could be two things. It could either be added at the will of the board and go back to action items and have it for discussion. I don't think that it's necessary that happen. I think that if it's the will of the board that the superintendent change the status, as long as you address it in that meeting on the 22nd, I can implement the change without board action.
That's how I feel. And then as far as the other comments we've heard tonight, people make their own choices, and they either choose to obey the laws or not obey the laws. So I believe kids should be in school, period. And I feel for all these kids, because there is the suicide rates, everything is out of control. You know, depression, grade level, you know, dropping, they're failing classes. I mean, there's every indication to get all kids back in school. And as far as our other problem, where people commented on the athletic department, people make choices. They either choose to follow the rules or they don't. And they're either gonna stay or they're not gonna stay. And they may be good for some kids and not good for others, but you either follow the rules or you don't. So that's what I have to say about that. And I want all kids back in school. That's my 2 cents.
all right. Procedurally, I don't think, Rick is correct. I don't think we need a motion to do it. Tim, would you like to make the motion even though it's not needed? If so, could we move back to make a motion to add it to action items, and we'll move back to do it? Or are you satisfied that it can be enacted without official action?
Yeah, as long as the board agrees with it, I mean, I think, you know.
Yeah, I guess tonight,
As long as there's a consensus.
I would just want to hear any dissent.
Right.
And you know, this would be the forum to discuss it.
Rick, I'm
All
curious, what are other districts in our area doing?
Well, we're the only district that has the hybrid at this time.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah, as you've seen, if you know, in September, it was a hot item every time one of the school districts closed down, and it was headlines. Now it happens so frequently that you don't read about it. But there are 2 districts in the county right now that are back to full distance because the number of positive cases in their buildings. So
how do we mitigate that? Do we have any ability to back off on spacing, or the closures due to somebody with no symptoms getting around somebody else with no symptoms? I mean,
Yeah, the 6 feet of social distancing requirement is still going to be there. So if we have a
but it's
positive
not
case in a
law.
classroom, we're going to have to react to it. But it, I think that
Is that
people
law?
have learned through this that you don't come to school sick. So, it's a bit of a gamble, but I think that it's doable.
What is it law?
All right.
I mean, do we have to shut down? Do we have to quarantine by law? Or can we shrink the rules of the quarantine? I mean,
Well, I don't know that any districts have tried that yet. I believe that everybody's just following the recommendations of the local health departments.
So what does it look like if everybody comes back up in the high school?
We'll go back to where we were the first probably 6 or 8 weeks of the school year, where 4 days a week, and I'm recommending that virtual Wednesday stay in place, because there still will be students in the distance learning model, and our teachers are just finding that day is critical to making those one-on-one connections with kids in the distance. So I would not recommend taking that away on Wednesdays. But we would be back in class, and some of our classrooms we would be at or very close to the social distancing guidelines. In some classes we'd be over those, and we would run the risk that if we had a positive case show up in our building, that we'd be sending a large number of kids into quarantine. But I think that everybody's aware of how that process works, and if they're willing to come back in the building, they're willing to take that risk.
So before we had, when we had the students in the building, and we separated them out 2 days a week. So that's bringing back all those students. What about the students that are in distance learning that want to return face to face? Do we have that ability? Do we have that capacity?
Yeah, because I think there's actually a larger number now who are in distance that won't come back, that previously were here because they don't want to get put into quarantine. Right. Or I talked to a couple of students today whose people in their household have become medically fragile, and they've said, we were here face to face, but we moved out a distance, and we'll probably finish the year here. So there's lots of different stories about exactly how everybody feels. But according to the survey, about 25% of the student body, which would be about 200 kids, would stay in distance. So that's a larger number than we started the year with. So I think that we would have better social distancing numbers going in. And then again, having a year's worth of experience with this and encouraging people to make good choices about health and hygiene and whether or not to come to school, I think that we could manage our way through it.
Okay. Any dissent?
All right.
I support getting started on Monday, Rick.
Greg, we'd like to hear from you too.
I can support getting started on Monday.
All right. I could definitely support it. Rick, what does it look like as far as our manpower for cleaning and, for that matter, materials, cleaning supplies? How does that look? Are we going to be able to ramp that up in a short order?
Yeah, I mean, we'll have to return to doing some things. Tom had more people on a shift while kids were here. And since we've been in the hybrid, we've stretched that back out. So he's got more people working on second shift. So that's actually logistically probably the more difficult thing to figure out, is how this affects the custodial maintenance department. So we'll get started on that in the morning and figure it out. But we have the supplies and the materials. We're shorthanded, but we've been shorthanded in that department for over 2 years. So we'll make it work.
Are they going to be able to handle extended cleaning services such as touch point cleaning between classes and such for common areas?
Right, we've been doing that, teachers in their classroom, we're doing that at the beginning of the year, and we'll have to go back to those protocols. So we'll revisit that with a quick refresher with the staff.
All right, so you feel we'll be able to maintain the, from the health and safety side, you think we can maintain the cleaning regimen required to get them all back full time?
I think we can. You know, I've said this so many times during the school year. Our evidence shows that we have not had cases pass through our classrooms. That the cases are passing through households. They're passing sometimes through athletic teams in a variety of different ways. So what we were doing, what we have been doing in our classrooms has been successful. Otherwise, I wouldn't suggest returning.
All right, well, I'm satisfied if you're assured that we can ramp up the cleaning to handle it. I think it's the best plan is to get as many of our kids as we can
I think that
back
we
into
can,
the classrooms.
if we hit a roadblock that I'm not thinking of, I'll certainly advise the board to any delay to a Monday start.
All right. Getting those kids back in the classroom is best all the way around educationally and otherwise. So I can support that also. I think you have a consensus, Rick.
Very good.
All right. Any other board member comments or discussion?
Yeah, I have several items. And I apologize. I know we've been on here a while, but
Make it quick, Tony.
well, sorry. I know, Susan, but I didn't mention these last time because we were late, and it seems like we're going to be late every week. So here we go. A month or so ago, when we talked about board goals, one of the things that Tim brought up was that we need to look into getting an IT program set up. I said then, and I've said it several times since then, that is a great idea. I don't know how we get this started, if we go to the curriculum committee or if we get a some type of task force, but we have to find ways to bring students to our school district. This is something most school districts aren't doing. So Rick, or whoever, I guess, who's in charge of the curriculum, we need to address this. I'm asking us to address it. I feel we should, and I know that there's other board members here to support that. So I'd like to see this as a regular discussion topic as we move forward. Second item I have is that we did talk about setting board goals, Kevin, and I know we brought it up at that meeting, and there's really not been a lot of topic discussion since then. But we need to get our board goals established for this year. I don't know how we do that, if we form a subcommittee to do that. Obviously, it's something I feel strongly about. I feel any organization has to have a goal. We got the kids back in school. That was something that, you know, Susan wanted. We got that, but there's more goals. We need to create a outstanding learning.
Aren't we having a retreat for board goals?
I thought that's when we were doing goals.
Yeah, board goals is in our
it's going to be April. I mean, it's going to be May. So, all right, if that's what it is, I guess I'll have to accept that. The third thing I want to say is that Kevin, I sent you an email about meeting face to face. I feel very strongly that we need to meet face to face. We're bringing our kids back face to face. We should be able to do it. And I also feel strongly that these comments by these concerned citizens ought to be able to come in one at a time and address us face to face. I know we can't have a gathering of 20 people in there, but I don't see a reason why we can't bring one person at a time into our board meeting, have them be 20 feet away or however far away they are, address their concerns, leave, and then let the next person in. I feel it's time, just like it's time for our kids to get back to school, it's time for this board to meet face to face. So I'm gonna move on from there, Susan, but that's how I feel about those three situations. But again, we got to get this IT thing going. It's something way we can bring kids to this district.
Tony, thank you for reminding me. I forgot to make that announcement completely. I apologize. That announcement was scribbled down here to make. This will hopefully be our very last virtual meeting ever. I'm going to work with Devin over the next 2 weeks. We're going to come back we're going to be forced into a hybrid type of setup. We're going to have to live stream them, And when we have larger presentations and such, it's just going to have to be hybrid. So what we're going to do is we're going to set up a new streaming site, new streaming channel, I'm sorry. And it's going to be set up differently so we don't have all the audio problems we had before when we tried live streaming or when we tried the hybrid. Hopefully, I don't see any reason why it won't be, but by the next meeting, we should be meeting back in person in at least a hybrid formula and stay that way until we can meet fully in person and be done with this virtual stuff.
Can we bring the people in one at a time to give their comments directly to us?
I think we can stage them and bring them in one at a time if there's comments. I'll verify that, of course, with the.
That's really important to me.
Yep. The goal will be to try to get as many people in that room as we can. So before we get to that next meeting, I'll have bounced this off a couple attorneys and get their opinion on what our constraints will be and see how exactly we're going to be burdened. And hopefully we can get everybody in the meeting that's going to be in the meeting. All right.
Well, it's 25 people and then you can put them in an overflow room. So
yeah, that's my
And-
anticipation.
Yeah.
Is we'll be able
And
to
I
bring
would-
them in one at a time.
And I would just say, let's keep doing the Zoom thing and use our computers that we're using right now. We're just going to be meeting in person because last time people were complaining they couldn't hear us. The video wasn't any good. They couldn't even see who was talking. I say, just don't change the format. Keep this format. People can see who's talking. They can hear them. And let's not create something that's not going to work. This is working. We're just going to meet together and we're limited by
And
25
be on camera and Zoom in person. It's something we can do. We won't have an overall view of the room, but certainly it's something we can do. And then we just have to set up the camera for people who want to speak or when we have presentations and such.
Right.
And that's what I'm working with Devin on in the next 2 weeks. I didn't have time since the emergency order to now to be sure that we had all the new order of a week ago, week and a half, to sit down with Devin and make sure the technology is going to work. Because last time it did not stream well. It was not smooth at all. So we don't want to have a repeat of that. So
Yeah, that's
I will be getting with Devin and we'll have the technology straightened out and be sure it goes smoothly next time. All right, that is all I had. Tony, were you finished?
I'm done.
I'm not.
All right.
Mrs. Cornish, I feel I was speechless there for a while. For you to speak up and confront us today, that's amazing. We feel so bad. I feel so bad for you, and thank you for having the strength to come in. I don't think there's any way I could have done it. Along those same lines, 3 parents tonight have come in and talked about how important it was for kids to get back face to face, and that's in school. And then and Suzanne just brought up the point about the other folks that spoke. Well, I know what your point is. My point of view is this: what John Zajac did was trying to help kids that he's a father. He's got 4. He sees the same problems that everybody else who are parents in here are seeing with kids who are not being able to, that were being cooped up. I don't have kids that age anymore. I don't know how it affected them. I have 6 and 8-year-old grandsons. That's it. I don't know how the effect is on them, but they're not old enough to be at that crossroad yet. We can't say, oh, yep, open the school back up. Tell all of our teachers, some of whom really don't want to open back up because they're worried about the virus themselves. May not hurt the kids, but the teachers can contract it. I don't think we're at 100% vaccination yet. Are we, Rick? No. Okay.
I think we're at 60.
Okay.
Rick?
That's a
But
personal choice.
70
We never be at 100%.
70%. We're at 70%. But regardless, this has been an awful ordeal for everyone.
Yes.
The teachers who are, I know I worked with a lot of those teachers. They're not hiding underneath their desk because of COVID, but it's a concern because as Rick has pointed out several times, kids get sent to school sick. Yes, COVID does not have a big effect in general on kids' health, as best as anybody knows, but the adults that are in there, it does put at some risk, a higher risk than what the kids had. And along with that, somebody, teachers, coaches, even volunteers who want to work with kids because they see the strain that they're under, have tried to take some steps to make that, to make that better. And when you play sports, if you're a basketball player and you foul somebody and it's a hustle foul, you don't jump down their throat. If a kid is trying to make a sack, he's a linebacker, he's a defensive end, he thinks he can get the quarterback before he releases a ball, but he misses it by that split second, it's a flag. That's not something that you get in his face about. It was a hustle play. It's not flagrant. And I don't think what John Zajac did was flagrant. Did he do it? Did he break the Health and Human Service rule? He did. He was chastised for that. But to be put on a last chance contract for that, I think was over the top. I think that there's a lot of parents that feel that same way. I do. I think I recommended him to replace me because I knew he had kids in his heart, and that he gets chastised for doing what he did, and to the point of losing his job. I feel horrible, as these other parents have expressed. I don't know how you survive it, but and there is no playbook. Nobody went to college to learn how to deal with COVID-19 or a 100-year pandemic. I'm sorry to ramble, but Mrs. Cornish, again, you're a rock.
Well, I would
Yes,
agree
indeed.
with Craig on that. I think Mr. Zajac should have got a medal for taking those kids down to Toledo and playing basketball to make sure nothing happened to them. To get them out of the house, get them to doing something. That's how I feel about it. We're in this COVID-19, it's a crazy time. And he was, as far as I'm concerned, he was looking out best for kids. So, and that's how I feel about it. So, Rick, it's your call, but that's how I feel about it. So.
Well,
yeah, we continue to get data. We got data today that was different than we had. So, I still think, we need to let this data come out, but certainly the data we got this afternoon changed my opinion slightly on this, but this is not over yet. I just really fear.
The data, really? You mean people's opinions?
No, it wasn't people's opinions, Susan. We had one of the things we discussed. The email that came out this afternoon, somebody confessed to doing something that John was accused of doing, and that changes things, and certainly changed it. How much is up to each person to decide.
Maybe that's how it was meant to look. Let's just let sleeping dog fly. It is what it is.
Okay, we're not going to argue and bicker about this. What I'm going to do is remind everyone that employee records are confidential. What's in the employee's file, any employee action, is confidential for all employees. We're not going to discuss individual employees, this, that, at the board table. Okay? If employees break the rules, break the law, there's consequences for it. Rick handles them. Things have been handled. We've had a couple of resignations. Whatever the case may be, whether or not there was a complaint against them, whether or not there was disciplinary action.
What are the consequences for board members that break the rules?
The only thing that is important is that it is handled appropriately.
What are your consequences?
Mr. Shaney, you're out of order. The only thing that's important here is that employees follow the rules, that kids are kept safe, and that consequences occur so that employees follow the rules and kids are kept safe. So enough of the conversation of that. Is there any conversation that doesn't involve employees' confidential information? All right. With that, we come to our adjournment.
You didn't had me on mute, but yeah, if once it's made public, it's not confidential.
Well, the problem is we have exited that area. There's one report that is not confidential. And what's happened here is we're now drifting away from the public part of that, and we're starting to discuss multiple employees, and we're starting to discuss disciplinary action that's part of their employee files. That's a no-go. Okay, the only thing that's public is that report back on January 5th, 1st, whatever day it was, That report is public and subject to FOIA. The rest of it is privileged information. So there's enough conjecture and enough rumor in town, and we don't need to debate it. Okay, we need to respect their confidentiality.
Just a point of reference, Kevin, I wasn't the one that brought that up.
I know, I'm not saying the meeting was starting to fall out of order, and we can't have that. And I think everybody's muted and has to unmute themselves.
I say let's just move on.
Okay, so are there any other comments or discussion?
Sir.
All right. Could I get a motion to adjourn, please?
So moved.
Second?
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Meeting is adjourned at 9:37.